There comes a moment when you realize that you've spent too long being at war with yourself. You've tried to be perfect, to make everyone happy, to outrun your mistakes, and yet, deep down, you still feel unworthy. You wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from the constant noise in your own mind. You criticize yourself more than anyone else ever could. You look at your life and wonder, when will I finally feel enough? This audiobook is your answer to that question. Transform your life. From self-hate to self-love is not about pretending to be positive or repeating empty affirmations. It's about learning how to stop tearing yourself apart and start rebuilding who you truly are, one honest, practical step at a time. Throughout this journey, you'll uncover why self-criticism became your default voice and how to change it. You'll learn to create habits that strengthen your mind, body, and emotions instead of draining them. You'll discover how small, daily actions, as simple as speaking kindly to yourself or setting boundaries, can completely shift the way you see life. This isn't a story of overnight change. It's a process of steady healing through reflection, forgiveness, and daily commitment. It's about understanding that self-love is not something you wait to feel. It's something you practice until it becomes part of you. If you've ever felt stuck in cycles of doubt, if you've ever struggled to forgive yourself, or if you've ever wondered whether peace is still possible for you, this audiobook will guide you there. Every chapter will walk you through a piece of that transformation, giving you tools you can use the moment you finish listening. By the end, you won't just understand self-love, you'll live it. You'll see that the same strength you've been using to survive can be used to grow, to heal, and to rebuild your confidence. You'll realize that you were never broken, only disconnected from the person you were always meant to be. So take a deep breath, settle in, and start this journey with an open heart. You're not here to fix yourself, you're here to meet yourself again, to understand your worth, and to finally live with the calm assurance that you are enough, just as you are. Chapter 1. Cultivate daily self-compassion through honest reflection and practice. There comes a point in life when the weight of self-criticism becomes too heavy to carry. It hides behind every decision, every reflection in the mirror, every attempt to grow. You begin to feel like your biggest enemy lives inside your own head. The voice that tells you you're not good enough, that you've failed too many times, that it's too late to change. It becomes so familiar that you start believing it's the truth. But it's not. That voice is not truth. It's habit. It's conditioning. It's fear disguised as self-protection. And the moment you begin to question it with honesty, you take the first step towards self-compassion. Self-compassion is not a vague spiritual idea. It's a daily discipline, the practice of treating yourself with the same patience and care that you would offer someone you deeply love. It doesn't mean avoiding responsibility or ignoring mistakes. It means standing with yourself through them, learning from them, and allowing yourself to be human without shame. It means choosing to stop the war within. The first step in cultivating daily self-compassion is honest reflection. This kind of reflection isn't about self-judgment, it's about truth without cruelty. It's sitting quietly and asking, what am I really feeling right now? What am I avoiding? What am I still holding against myself? Most people run from these questions because they fear the answers. But self-honesty is the foundation of growth. Without it, no change can last. When you begin to face your thoughts directly, not as an enemy but as an observer, you start to reclaim your inner authority. You stop letting guilt and shame dictate your worth. Take a few moments each day to pause and reflect on your thoughts. You might do this while sitting in silence before bed or while walking outside in the morning. Ask yourself where you've been hard on yourself today. Did you criticize your appearance, your choices, your productivity? Notice it without judgment. Awareness is power. You cannot change what you refuse to see. The moment you become aware of your inner criticism, you've already begun to weaken its control. Most people misunderstand self-compassion as self-indulgence. They think it means making excuses or being too soft, but true compassion is not weakness, it's emotional intelligence in action. It's understanding that punishment has never led to healing. You cannot shame yourself into growth. You can only love yourself into change. Discipline grows stronger when it's rooted in understanding, not fear. When you approach your mistakes with kindness, you stop wasting energy on regret and start using that energy for improvement. Imagine the difference between saying, "I'm such an idiot for forgetting that," and saying, "I made a mistake, but I can learn from it." The first shuts down your progress. The second opens it up. The language you use with yourself is shaping your life every single day. Change begins in the words you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. That's where compassion begins, in private moments, in the quiet dialogue between your mind and your heart. When you catch yourself spiraling into self-hate, pause and ask, would I say this to a person I love? If not, change it. Speak differently. Even if it feels unnatural at first, persist. The brain learns through repetition. Each time you replace criticism with understanding, you carve a new mental path, one that leads to peace instead of pain. Honest reflection also means being willing to see your patterns without blaming yourself for them. You might notice that certain thoughts appear every morning, or that certain situations trigger feelings of worthlessness. Instead of running from them, observe them. Ask why they appear. Many of these patterns were not born from your failures, but from your past, from moments when you were made to feel small or unworthy. The mind learned to protect you through self-criticism, believing that if it points out your flaws first, the world won't hurt you as much. But that strategy no longer serves you. What once was protection has become limitation. When you start seeing your inner critic as a scared part of you rather than a monster, compassion naturally arises. You begin to understand that behind every harsh thought is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. Self-compassion is not about silencing that fear. It's about responding to it with maturity and care. You can say to yourself, I hear you, but I choose peace. That is self-mastery. That is freedom. To practice daily self-compassion, start with 3 small commitments. First, commit to observing your inner dialogue for 1 full day without reacting. Just notice what your mind says and how often it criticizes. Awareness creates distance between you and the thought. Second, commit to replacing one negative self-thought with a neutral or kind statement. If your mind says, I'm worthless, respond with, I'm learning to value myself. It doesn't have to feel perfect. It only has to feel possible. Third, commit to 1 act of self-care each day that honors your worth, something simple like getting enough rest, eating with mindfulness, or allowing yourself a quiet moment of stillness. These are not luxuries, they are acts of self-respect. Over time, these small acts accumulate. They begin to change how you see yourself. You start noticing that your tone softens, your reactions slow down, your patience grows. You begin to understand that self-love is not an emotion that appears overnight. It's a relationship you build through daily effort. Every time you choose compassion over criticism, you strengthen that relationship. Reflection becomes a habit when you make time for it intentionally. You can journal at the end of the day, answering a few questions. What went well today? What challenged me? How did I treat myself through it all? If you notice that you've been hard on yourself, don't correct it with guilt. Correct it with curiosity. Ask, what did I need in that moment that I didn't give myself? That single question can reveal more truth than hours of analysis. Because behind every act of self-hate is an unmet need. Maybe it's the need for rest, understanding, or reassurance. When you learn to identify and meet those needs directly, self-hate loses its foundation. Many people carry years of unspoken self-resentment. They hold on to past mistakes as if they define their identity. But the truth is, you are not the person you were when you made those mistakes. You have learned, grown, and evolved since then. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. Self-compassion allows you to finally separate who you were from who you are becoming. When you stop defining yourself by your lowest moments, you free yourself to rise to higher ones. Self-compassion also means forgiving yourself for things you didn't know at the time. You cannot blame your past self for lacking wisdom that only experience could bring. Every decision, even the ones that caused pain, was made from the level of awareness you had then. Growth begins when you stop punishing yourself for being human. That forgiveness is the key that unlocks self-love. You will notice that as compassion grows, your standards for yourself become clearer, not lower. Self-compassion doesn't make you lazy or complacent. It actually gives you more energy to grow because you no longer waste it fighting yourself. You become more disciplined, not because you fear failure, but because you respect your own potential. You begin to act not from guilt, but from genuine care. That's the difference between self-punishment and self-leadership. A person who practices self-compassion becomes calmer and more focused. When challenges arise, they no longer crumble under pressure. Instead, they ask, "What can I learn from this?" That single shift transforms suffering into wisdom. It turns setbacks into teachers. And over time, it creates a quiet inner confidence that no external validation can replace. If you've spent years criticizing yourself, you might feel resistance at first. Compassion might feel foreign, even uncomfortable. That's normal. You've trained your mind to survive through self-criticism. Now you're teaching it to thrive through self-kindness. Be patient with that process. Growth doesn't happen through force. It happens through consistency. Every time you catch a negative thought and choose to respond differently, you are reprogramming your mind for peace. This practice of honest reflection is also an act of courage. It takes strength to look at yourself clearly without flinching. It takes integrity to admit where you've hurt yourself through self-neglect or self-blame. But courage doesn't mean you're fearless. It means you choose truth even when it's uncomfortable. When you begin to see yourself clearly, you no longer need to hide behind excuses or denial. You can finally begin to change in a grounded and lasting way. Each day offers a new chance to practice. You don't have to fix everything at once. Focus on progress, not perfection. If you fall back into self-criticism, notice it and begin again. That's the essence of compassion, the willingness to start over without shame. With time, these moments of kindness build an unshakable foundation of self-trust. You start believing that no matter what happens, you will not abandon yourself again. Self-compassion is also about being honest about what you need. You might realize that certain environments, people, or habits reinforce your self-hate. It's okay to step back from them. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's necessary. The more you surround yourself with supportive influences, books, people, or even quiet spaces, the easier it becomes to stay grounded in self-love. Reflection helps you identify what strengthens you and what drains you. Choose accordingly. When you practice compassion daily, you'll start noticing how it affects your interactions with others. You'll become more patient, less reactive, more forgiving. Because the way you treat yourself becomes the way you treat the world. You cannot give kindness from an empty heart. When your inner world softens, your outer world begins to change too. Relationships improve, decisions become clearer, and life feels less like a battle and more like a journey. As you move through your days, remind yourself that growth is not about constant achievement. It's about becoming more conscious, more aware, and more loving. Compassion teaches you that progress can be quiet. It can be the moment you pause instead of react, the moment you forgive instead of attack, the moment you rest instead of push. These moments are not small, they are the building blocks of a peaceful life. In time, you'll notice that the voice of self-hate begins to lose its authority. It will still appear, but it will sound weaker, less convincing. Because now you've built another voice, a calm, compassionate one that speaks truth without cruelty. It reminds you that you are enough, that you can improve without destroying yourself in the process, that you are allowed to be both a work in progress and a person of worth. This is what daily self-compassion creates, an inner environment of safety. When your mind becomes a place of safety instead of attack, everything changes. You begin to take risks again, to dream again, to love again. You stop waiting for perfection and start living with intention. You realize that you can respect yourself even when you make mistakes, that you can care for yourself even when you're struggling. The ultimate goal is not to eliminate self-doubt, but to respond to it wisely. You become your own guide. You learn to tell yourself, "I am doing my best, and that is enough for today." That mindset doesn't breed mediocrity, it breeds endurance. It helps you keep going when things are difficult, because compassion sustains you in ways that discipline alone never can. Every transformation begins with awareness. Self-compassion is awareness in action. It's the moment you stop punishing yourself for what you didn't know and start supporting yourself in learning what you now need to know. When you practice this daily, your entire relationship with life begins to shift. The chaos inside quiets. The need for external validation fades. You become grounded in your own worth. And that is where self-love begins, not in grand gestures, not in perfect routines, but in the quiet, consistent choice to stand by yourself through every high and low. You start realizing that you no longer need to earn your worth. You were worthy all along. You simply forgot. Self-compassion is the process of remembering. You may not notice it immediately, but with time, you'll wake up one day and realize that you speak to yourself differently, that you carry yourself differently, that you look in the mirror and see a person you're finally proud to know. That is the power of daily self-compassion. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens from within. And once it begins, it never leaves you. It becomes the quiet strength behind every decision, the calm center beneath every storm, the unshakable foundation of self-love that no one can take away. Because the truth is simple: when you choose compassion, you choose freedom. When you stop fighting yourself, you start healing. And when you practice that healing every day through reflection, awareness, and patience, you become unstoppable. That is how transformation begins, not with a single breakthrough, but with 1,000 small moments of honesty and kindness. Every day, one thought, one choice, one breath at a time. Chapter 2. Replace critical thoughts with evidence-based affirmations and actions. Every thought we repeat becomes a belief. Over time, those beliefs shape how we see ourselves and what we think we deserve. When negative thoughts go unchecked, they begin to define our inner identity. You start believing the worst things your mind tells you. I'm not enough. I always fail. Nothing ever changes. These statements begin as thoughts, but through repetition, they become your personal truth. The problem is that they were never true to begin with. They were assumptions built on emotion, not evidence. To break free from self-hate, you must replace those critical thoughts with evidence-based affirmations and deliberate actions that prove your worth through experience, not imagination. Your mind listens to repetition. It doesn't care whether what you repeat is positive or negative. It simply memorizes patterns. This means you have the power to change your internal narrative by consciously feeding it new information. When you tell yourself you're capable, strong, and improving, and then follow that statement with small, visible proof, your brain begins to adjust its expectations. That's how transformation happens at the neurological level, not by blind hope, but by pairing new affirmations with consistent evidence. The first step is awareness. You can't change a thought until you identify it. Throughout your day, pay attention to your internal dialogue. Notice the phrases that show up repeatedly. Some are easy to recognize, others are subtle, the quiet doubts that appear before you speak, act, or try something new. Write down these thoughts without censoring them. When you see them on paper, you can analyze them objectively instead of emotionally. Most of them will sound harsh, exaggerated, and untrue. That's because critical thoughts rarely come from logic. They come from fear and habit. Once you recognize a critical thought, challenge it like a scientist testing a theory. Ask, is this fact or assumption? What real evidence supports this idea? If you think, I always fail, examine your life honestly. You'll find plenty of moments where you succeeded, maybe not perfectly, but successfully enough to contradict the claim. Evidence doesn't lie. Facts weaken the power of emotional distortions. By comparing your thoughts to reality, you begin separating truth from mental noise. After identifying false thoughts, replace them with affirmations grounded in evidence. Avoid unrealistic phrases like, I'm perfect, or everything will always work out. Your mind rejects what it doesn't believe. Instead, use affirmations built on reason and progress. Say, I'm learning and improving every day. I'm capable of handling challenges with patience. I've overcome difficult things before, and I can do it again. These are not empty statements, they are affirmations, supported by facts from your own life. The effectiveness of an affirmation depends on its alignment with action. Speaking positively while living passively creates inner conflict, but when you follow affirmations with action, they become real. If you say, I'm committed to my growth, prove it by reading, journaling, exercising, or setting boundaries. Each action reinforces the belief. Each repetition strengthens the new identity. The combination of self-talk and evidence creates psychological momentum that replaces doubt with trust. You don't have to fight every negative thought that arises. Fighting creates tension and keeps your attention on the problem. Instead, redirect. When your mind says, I can't do this, pause, breathe, and respond with action. Do one small thing that disproves the thought. The action itself becomes evidence that you can. Over time, this simple habit rewires your thinking more effectively than argument ever could. To make this process practical, create a personal affirmation routine. Start each morning by grounding yourself in reality-based truths. Repeat 3 statements that reflect the person you are becoming. Keep them simple and specific. I take responsibility for my growth. I speak kindly to myself. I act with courage, even when I'm uncertain. Then, throughout your day, match each statement with behavior. If your affirmation is about kindness, monitor your tone when speaking to yourself or others. If it's about courage, take one step that scares you slightly. When your actions match your affirmations, self-trust begins to grow. Critical thoughts are persistent because they've been rehearsed for years. They won't disappear overnight, but they can lose authority quickly when you stop believing them. Think of every thought as a suggestion, not a command. You decide which ones to accept. Each time you choose an empowering thought over a critical one, you reclaim control of your mind. The goal isn't to silence negativity forever, it's to stop obeying it. Many people fall into the trap of positive thinking without evidence. They repeat affirmations but never act on them, expecting emotions to change automatically. That approach often fails because your subconscious mind doesn't respond to empty words, it responds to proof. When you say, I'm confident, but never take action that reflects confidence, your brain sees inconsistency and rejects the statement. But if you say, I'm learning confidence and then practice speaking up, standing tall, or finishing tasks, your brain sees congruence. Over time, belief catches up with behavior. Building a new belief system is like building a muscle. It grows through repetition and resistance. The resistance is the discomfort you feel when challenging old thoughts. Instead of avoiding it, face it with patience. Each time you counter a self-critical belief with truth, you strengthen your mental resilience. You begin to realize that thoughts are temporary visitors, not permanent realities. To make this practical, use a daily journal to track both thoughts and actions. Divide a page into 2 columns, one for critical thoughts you catch, the other for the evidence-based responses you create. Write your affirmation next to the evidence that supports it. For example, if your mind says, "I'm lazy," write it down. Then respond with evidence. "I worked hard yesterday, and I completed what I planned." That contrast rewires your perception. You are literally retraining your brain to process information through truth rather than emotion. When replacing negative thoughts, consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need to repeat affirmations for hours. You need to practice them daily with sincerity and follow them with small actions. The brain values patterns, not volume. One calm, deliberate affirmation paired with action has more power than hundreds of loud, unfocused ones. The reason this method works is that it builds trust between your conscious and subconscious mind. For years, your subconscious has stored negative messages about your worth. When you start introducing new beliefs backed by experience, it begins to re-evaluate those messages. It starts to believe you. This shift is subtle but powerful. You'll notice it when you respond differently to challenges, when your first reaction is no longer self-blame but curiosity, no longer fear but determination. There's another step that amplifies this practice: gratitude. When you end your day, reflect on how your new thoughts influenced your behavior. Acknowledge the moments when you spoke kindly to yourself, made progress, or stopped a negative spiral. Gratitude reinforces awareness, which deepens transformation. The more you notice your own effort, the faster self-respect grows. Replacing critical thoughts is not about pretending everything is positive. It's about aligning your thoughts with evidence instead of emotion. It's about learning to speak truthfully to yourself, not harshly, not unrealistically, but truthfully. When you live by truth, you stop oscillating between arrogance and self-hate. You find balance. You become grounded. There will be days when the old thoughts return. They'll try to convince you that nothing's changed. Don't resist them with anger. Just return to your process. Observe, question, replace, act. Every repetition weakens the old path and strengthens the new. The goal is not perfection, it's consistency. When you begin living from evidence instead of emotion, confidence becomes stable. You no longer depend on external validation because your inner proof is stronger than anyone's opinion. You know who you are because you've seen yourself act with integrity, resilience, and effort. That awareness creates calm power, not loud, boastful confidence, but quiet self-assurance. In time, you'll notice how different your inner voice sounds. Where it once criticized, it now guides. Where it once doubted, it now encourages. You'll no longer have to force positive thinking. It will arise naturally from the evidence of your growth. That's what replacing critical thoughts truly means: transforming the mental environment you live in every day. The most powerful affirmations are not the ones you say out loud. They're the ones you prove true through consistent action. When you live in alignment with your words, your life begins to reflect that truth. And as you continue to act from this place of awareness, self-hate fades, not because you fought it, but because you replaced it with undeniable proof of your worth. That is how you rewrite the story of your mind, one thought, one truth, one action at a time. Chapter 3. Build healthy boundaries to protect energy and personal growth. There comes a time in your personal growth when you realize that not everyone deserves unlimited access to your energy. You begin to notice that certain people, environments, and habits drain you instead of building you. It's not about blame, it's about awareness. Growth requires energy, and energy needs protection. Building healthy boundaries is how you protect the peace that allows you to keep growing without constantly being pulled backward. Without boundaries, you lose focus, lose strength, and eventually lose connection to yourself. With them, you begin to live intentionally. Boundaries are not walls. They are lines of self-respect. They define where your responsibility ends and another person's begins. They are not created to separate you from others, but to protect the space where you can think clearly, feel deeply, and live truthfully. You cannot heal or grow in an environment that constantly demands you to betray your own needs. Boundaries are how you say to the world, "My energy matters, my peace matters, my time matters." The first step in creating boundaries is clarity. You must know what drains you and what strengthens you. Sit down with yourself and notice how you feel around different people and situations. Pay attention to your body's reactions. Some people leave you feeling light, others leave you feeling tense or tired. That reaction is not random, it's data. It tells you where your energy is respected and where it's being taken. The same applies to habits, endless scrolling, gossip, or saying yes to things that don't align with your values. All consume energy that could be used for growth. Once you become clear on where your energy goes, you can begin to take ownership of it. Many people avoid setting boundaries because they fear conflict. They don't want to disappoint others or be labeled selfish. But saying yes to everyone else while saying no to yourself is not kindness, it's self-neglect. Real kindness includes yourself. You can care for others and still protect your energy. In fact, when you respect your limits, your relationships become healthier because you interact from strength, not resentment. People may not always like your boundaries, but those who truly value you will learn to respect them. A boundary begins as an internal decision before it becomes an external statement. You first decide what you will and will not tolerate. This requires honesty. Ask yourself what behaviors, requests, or interactions make you feel drained or disrespected. Once you identify them, create a clear rule for yourself. I will not engage in conversations that leave me feeling diminished. I will not overextend myself to gain approval. I will end interactions that cross my comfort level. These personal rules become anchors. When you act on them consistently, others learn how to treat you. Setting boundaries will often feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a sign that you're wrong, it's a sign that you're changing patterns that once kept you silent. Most people have spent years believing that being liked equals being safe. But personal peace is worth more than approval. Every time you choose self-respect over people-pleasing, you strengthen your inner power. That power becomes the foundation of your growth. Boundaries are also about time. You can't grow if your schedule is filled with obligations that don't align with your goals. Begin to examine how you spend your hours. Are you investing your time or merely spending it? Replace passive obligations with purposeful routines that support your physical, emotional, and mental health. Choose rest over noise, reflection over reaction, and creation over consumption. Protecting your time is protecting your future. You will face moments when people push against your boundaries. They might guilt you, question you, or try to make you feel wrong for protecting yourself. Stay calm and consistent. You don't need to argue or justify your decisions. A simple, firm statement is enough. I'm not available for that. That doesn't work for me. The strength of a boundary is not in its explanation, but in its consistency. When you hold your ground quietly and respectfully, people eventually adjust. It's equally important to build emotional boundaries. This means not absorbing the emotions and problems of others as your own. Compassion doesn't mean carrying someone else's burden on your back. You can care without losing yourself. When someone is upset, you can listen with empathy, but still stay grounded in your own emotional space. You're allowed to help without fixing, to support without sacrificing your stability. Emotional boundaries allow you to remain kind without becoming consumed. Digital boundaries are another form of protection in today's world. The constant flow of notifications, opinions, and comparisons can quietly erode your sense of peace. Decide when and how you engage with technology. Schedule times to disconnect, silence unnecessary alerts, and avoid content that provokes negativity or self-doubt. Protecting your digital space is just as vital as protecting your physical one. The mind cannot rest if it's always reacting. As you grow more comfortable with boundaries, you'll notice something unexpected. Your relationships improve. They become clearer and more genuine. The people who truly align with you will appreciate your honesty because it creates safety and mutual respect. Those who relied on your lack of boundaries may fall away, but that loss is not failure, it's refinement. You're creating space for people and experiences that support your evolution instead of draining it. Setting boundaries also helps you manage your energy throughout the day. Think of energy as a limited resource. Every conversation, decision, and activity either recharges or depletes it. Start each day by identifying your priorities. Give your energy to what truly matters: your health, your goals, your growth, your peace. Say no to distractions disguised as obligations. Each no you give to something misaligned is a yes to your own development. One of the most powerful lessons in personal growth is understanding that you are responsible for how you feel at the end of the day. If you constantly feel exhausted or resentful, something is crossing your boundaries. Pay attention to that signal. Your emotions are indicators of imbalance. Instead of ignoring them, use them as feedback. Adjust where necessary. You're not meant to tolerate chronic depletion. You're meant to create balance. Boundaries also extend to your self-talk. You must set limits on how you speak to yourself. Stop allowing your inner dialogue to insult or diminish you. Draw a line and enforce it with the same strength you would use with anyone else who disrespects you. Replace harshness with accountability, not cruelty. You can correct yourself without tearing yourself apart. That's an inner boundary that protects your confidence and preserves your motivation. There's power in realizing that you don't owe everyone an explanation for protecting your peace. You owe yourself honesty and consistency. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. In the beginning, you'll second-guess yourself. You'll wonder if you're being too rigid or unkind. But over time, you'll feel the difference between guilt and growth. Guilt comes from breaking old habits of self-abandonment. Growth comes from staying true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. Healthy boundaries are not static. They evolve as you do. What was acceptable once may no longer be acceptable now. Review your boundaries regularly as you gain more clarity about your values and direction. This continuous adjustment keeps you aligned with your true self. Growth without boundaries is chaos. Growth with boundaries is focus. As you strengthen your boundaries, you'll notice your energy stabilizing. You'll no longer feel drained after every interaction or overwhelmed by every request. You'll begin to make decisions based on peace, not pressure. That calm stability becomes the ground from which true self-love grows. You'll realize that boundaries are not about separation, they are about connection, the kind of connection that allows you to remain authentic in every part of your life. With time, setting boundaries will stop feeling like a defense mechanism and start feeling like an act of love. Love for your energy, your potential, and your future. It's a statement that says, I am responsible for my well-being. And that responsibility is where real freedom begins. Because when your energy is protected, your mind clears, your confidence grows, and your purpose becomes undeniable. Boundaries are not about building distance, they're about defining identity. They remind you that your peace is sacred, your growth is valuable, and your life belongs to you. Once you embrace that truth, You'll stop seeking validation through overgiving and start finding fulfillment through balance. You'll live with intention, move with calm strength, and stand tall in the quiet power of self-respect. Chapter 4. Practice consistent small wins to rebuild confidence and resilience. Confidence doesn't return through sudden success, it rebuilds through small, deliberate victories. When your self-belief has been shaken by failure, criticism, or years of doubt, grand goals can feel impossible. The mind starts whispering that you'll never be enough, that effort won't matter, that change is out of reach. But the truth is, confidence and resilience are not built in a single leap. They are restored through daily, manageable actions that prove to you that progress is possible. Every small win you create rewires your brain to trust yourself again. A small win is not insignificant. It's the foundation of every larger accomplishment. When you do something you said you would, no matter how small, your mind records it as evidence of reliability. That evidence begins to replace doubt. Over time, it becomes strength. Confidence doesn't come from saying, "I can do anything." It comes from showing yourself, one action at a time, that you can keep your promises. Many people fail to regain confidence because they wait for big changes before allowing themselves to feel capable. They want to see massive results before they believe in themselves. But the order is reversed. You must believe enough to take small actions first, and those actions will create the evidence you need to sustain that belief. Small wins are how you teach your mind to move again after standing still for too long. Start with something simple and achievable. If your goal is to get healthier, begin by walking for 10 minutes. Instead of forcing yourself into an exhausting routine you'll abandon in a week. If you want to regain focus, commit to reading 5 pages instead of finishing an entire book. If you're rebuilding self-trust, promise yourself one meaningful action each day and follow through no matter what. The size of the step doesn't matter. What matters is consistency. Confidence grows in the rhythm of daily effort, not the rush of occasional intensity. Small wins also teach you patience. They remind you that growth is a gradual process, not a race. When you celebrate a small victory, waking up early, finishing a task, saying no when you used to say yes, you begin to associate progress with satisfaction instead of stress. That satisfaction motivates you to keep going. Each small success adds another layer of belief, another reason to continue, another quiet reminder that you are capable. Resilience begins in these same moments. It's not about never falling. It's about learning to rise quickly without losing hope. When you practice small wins consistently, you train your mind to recover faster from setbacks. You begin to view mistakes as feedback rather than proof of failure. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you adapt, adjust, and keep moving. That adaptability is the essence of resilience, not perfection, but persistence. 2. Rebuild confidence. Focus on completion, not perfection. The goal is not to do things flawlessly, but to finish what you start. Each completed action builds a record of competence. The human mind gains confidence through repetition of success, no matter how small. It's not about how impressive the achievement is, it's about the feeling of momentum it creates. Momentum is the bridge between effort and belief. Create a system of visible progress. Keep a daily log of what you've accomplished, even the smallest actions. Seeing your progress written down changes how your brain interprets effort. It transforms vague feelings of failure into tangible evidence of improvement. When you read over your list after a week or a month, you'll see growth you didn't notice happening. That recognition strengthens motivation. Another powerful way to rebuild confidence is through self-accountability. Hold yourself to simple, clear standards. When you complete a small win, acknowledge it fully. When you miss one, don't hide from it. Reflect, adjust, and begin again. The key is consistency without self-punishment. Accountability is not self-criticism, it's a form of respect. You're telling yourself, I take my growth seriously. Resilience thrives in structure. When your life feels uncertain or unstable, create small routines you can control. These routines become anchors that steady you during difficult times. Simple habits like journaling each morning, preparing your meals, or tidying your space build order in your environment and calm in your mind. You can't control everything that happens around you, but you can control how you respond, and routines strengthen that response. Each time you follow through with a small win, your self-perception shifts slightly. You begin to see yourself as capable, reliable, and strong. That shift is subtle at first, but powerful over time. Eventually, your mind starts expecting success rather than fearing failure. That expectation changes everything: how you act, how you speak, how you handle challenges. You begin to move through life with quiet confidence instead of hesitation. When rebuilding confidence, avoid comparing your progress to others. Comparison steals your focus and makes your wins feel smaller than they are. Your path is unique, and your victories matter even if no one else notices them. The purpose of a small win is not to impress others, but to empower yourself. Confidence that depends on comparison is fragile. Confidence that comes from self-evidence is unshakable. Sometimes, rebuilding self-belief means starting over after disappointment. When life knocks you down, your natural instinct might be to do something dramatic to recover quickly. But true recovery happens in the steady, quiet rebuilding of daily effort. Resilience is born in the decision to keep showing up, even when progress feels slow. Every time you rise after a setback, you reinforce your ability to endure. Endurance turns uncertainty into strength. You'll have days when you don't feel motivated. That's when small wins matter most. Even a single completed task can restore a sense of control. Confidence doesn't require constant enthusiasm, it requires discipline. Do one useful thing each day, even if it's as small as making your bed, preparing a meal, or organizing a plan. The action itself, not the size of it, restores direction. The smallest consistent efforts create the strongest foundation for long-term resilience. To strengthen this process, focus on progress language. Instead of saying, "I'm still not there," say, "I'm further along than before." That shift in wording reinforces the growth mindset. It keeps you looking forward rather than dwelling on what's missing. Every small win deserves acknowledgement, because each one represents a step away from stagnation and a step toward empowerment. Over time, small wins create something greater than confidence. They create identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who takes action, someone who follows through, someone who persists. That new identity becomes a source of stability when external circumstances shift. Confidence based on results can be shaken. Confidence based on identity cannot. When you know you are the kind of person who shows up, you no longer fear temporary setbacks. To sustain momentum, celebrate your wins privately and sincerely. Pause for a moment of gratitude after completing something you once avoided. Recognize the effort it took. This isn't about arrogance. It's about reinforcing self-trust. The brain remembers what feels rewarding. When you reward effort, it naturally seeks more opportunities to repeat it. Gratitude strengthens the cycle of consistent improvement. Resilience also grows through reflection. At the end of each week, ask yourself what worked, what didn't, and what you learned. Reflection prevents discouragement because it turns mistakes into insight. When you understand why something didn't work, you remove the emotional weight from failure and replace it with clarity. That clarity fuels smarter action next time. This is how resilient people think. They don't see obstacles as signs to stop, but as directions to adjust. The key is to remain patient with the process. You cannot rush self-belief. Confidence built quickly fades easily. Confidence built slowly endures. Each day you show up, each small win you secure, each adjustment you make, all of it compounds silently until one day you realize you no longer need to rebuild confidence because you've become confidence itself. When you reach that point, you'll notice that resilience feels natural. You'll no longer fear challenges because you've trained yourself to handle them through experience. The strength you once searched for will already be within you. That's the gift of small wins. They don't just change what you achieve, they change who and you are. Keep stacking those wins, one after another, quietly, steadily, without rush. Each one is a brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. And one day, you'll look back and realize that every small victory you once dismissed was actually the moment your life began to rebuild, piece by piece, action by action, until confidence and resilience became your second nature. Chapter 5. Create practical routines that support mental, physical, and emotional health. Lasting transformation requires structure. No matter how inspired you feel, without a practical routine, motivation fades and life slowly returns to old patterns. A routine is not about restriction, it's about direction. It gives you rhythm, stability, and space to thrive. When your days are built on intentional habits that support your mind, body, and emotions, you no longer wake up reacting to life, you begin living by design. A good routine is the foundation of peace, productivity, and purpose. It doesn't have to be complicated, it only has to be consistent. The mind thrives on predictability. When you create order in your day, your brain feels safe and focused. Without structure, your thoughts scatter, decisions pile up, and stress quietly grows. That's why creating simple systems matters. It reduces unnecessary choices and frees mental energy for what truly matters. And build mental clarity in chaos. Each organized part of your day, even something as small as setting a consistent wake-up time, trains your mind to function with calm strength. Start with your mornings. The way you begin the day sets the tone for everything that follows. Avoid rushing into the world immediately. Take the first minutes after waking to center yourself. Sit quietly, stretch, breathe, or write down what you want to focus on. You don't need a complicated ritual, you just need presence. When you begin the day with calm intention, your mind stays steadier throughout challenges. Morning structure is not about doing more. It's about grounding yourself before life's noise begins. Physical health supports every other part of your growth. Without energy, discipline fades. Without movement, emotions stagnate. The body and mind are deeply connected. Neglect one, and the other weakens. Incorporate movement into your routine in ways that feel natural to you. You don't have to chase extremes. Start with what feels sustainable. A daily walk, light exercise, or stretching routine is enough to signal to your brain that you care for yourself. Movement improves focus, mood, and resilience. It doesn't just change your body, it changes how you experience life. Nutrition is another form of self-respect. What you eat directly affects how you think and feel. Create eating habits that nourish rather than numb. Choose real, simple foods that fuel your body and sharpen your clarity. Avoid using food to escape emotions. When you eat mindfully, you reconnect with your body's wisdom, the quiet knowledge of what feels good and what doesn't. Every mindful choice strengthens discipline and self-trust. Sleep is often overlooked, yet it's the foundation of all recovery. When you deprive yourself of rest, no routine can sustain itself. Set a consistent sleep schedule and protect it like your most important appointment. Turn off distractions before bed and create an environment that signals peace. Rest is not laziness, it's renewal. When your body rests well, your mind becomes sharper and your emotions stabilize. Without sleep, every challenge feels heavier than it truly is. Emotional health requires its own structure. Life will always bring challenges, And without emotional habits, stress accumulates silently. Create time each day to process what you feel instead of ignoring it. Journaling, quiet reflection, or talking openly with someone you trust helps prevent emotional buildup. A healthy routine includes moments of stillness. The world moves fast, but you are not obligated to match its pace. Slowing down is not falling behind. It's regaining control. Mental health is strengthened by boundaries in your daily life. Limit unnecessary distractions and protect your attention from constant stimulation. If you start the day scrolling endlessly, your focus fragments before it even begins. Choose specific times to check your phone or consume information, and stick to them. Your attention is your most valuable resource. When you guard it carefully, you think more clearly and feel more balanced. Routines should also include purpose-driven tasks. When you dedicate time each day to something meaningful, learning, creating, helping, your sense of fulfillment deepens. Purpose gives structure, emotional depth. It reminds you that your actions matter. Even 10 minutes of intentional effort toward a meaningful goal can transform how you perceive your day. Without purpose, even busy days feel empty. With it, even simple actions feel significant. Balance in a routine comes from flexibility, not rigidity. There will be days when things don't go as planned, and that's okay. The goal is not perfection but consistency. A healthy routine adapts when life shifts. If you miss a step, you don't fail, you adjust. The strength of a routine lies in its sustainability. It's something you can return to easily, not something that collapses at the first disruption. To build a routine that truly supports your life, connect it to your personal values. Ask yourself what matters most. Maybe it's health, peace, family, or growth. Align your habits with those values. If peace matters, schedule quiet time. If health matters, prioritize rest and nourishment. When your routines reflect your values, discipline feels natural because it comes from alignment, not obligation. Start small. Choose one routine that feels realistic and commit to it daily. Once it becomes automatic, add another. Avoid trying to change everything at once. That leads to burnout. The most effective routines evolve gradually. What begins as one small habit can eventually transform your entire lifestyle. Slow, steady improvement always outlasts sudden overcommitment. Evening routines are just as important as morning ones. End your day intentionally. Reflect on what went well, what challenged you, and what you can do differently tomorrow. Avoid ending the day with overstimulation or unresolved tension. Spend a few minutes in gratitude or relaxation. This creates closure, helping your mind reset. A peaceful evening leads to better rest, which fuels the next day's clarity and focus. A well-balanced routine also includes moments of joy. Growth is not meant to feel like constant struggle. Make space for things that uplift you, listening to music, spending time in nature, reading, connecting with loved ones. Joy replenishes emotional energy. Without it, even the most disciplined routine becomes mechanical. Joy is nourishment for the spirit. It keeps the process of growth alive and fulfilling. Accountability strengthens every routine. Track your habits, review your progress, and celebrate consistency. The point is not perfection but awareness. Tracking helps you see patterns where your energy flows easily and where resistance appears. Awareness creates adjustment, and adjustment leads to progress. Every time you stay consistent, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of creating order in your life. Creating routines for mental, physical, and emotional health is an act of self-leadership. You are taking responsibility for your stability. You're building a framework that allows your best self to emerge daily. It's not glamorous, and it's not always exciting, but it's powerful. Consistency in small habits shapes character more than motivation ever could. When life becomes overwhelming, your routines will hold you steady. They'll remind you that you have structure even in uncertainty. They'll protect your mental clarity when emotions run high and sustain your physical energy when challenges demand more of you. A strong routine is a quiet kind of confidence, a reminder that you're in control of what you can control. Over time, you'll notice the difference. Your mornings will feel lighter, your focus sharper, your mood steadier. You'll move through days with purpose instead of pressure. You'll stop chasing balance and start living it. Because the truth is, routines are not cages, they are freedom. They free you from chaos, from indecision, from fatigue. They give you the space to become the person you've always wanted to be, one consistent day at a time. Eventually, you'll see that a good routine is not just about managing time, it's about protecting your life force. It's about honoring your body, respecting your emotions, and guiding your mind with care. When all three work together in harmony, you stop surviving your days and start creating them. That's what it means to live intentionally, not by chance, but by conscious design. Chapter 6. Develop compassionate self. Talk to calm fear and increase courage. The words you speak to yourself shape the world you live in. Long before you take action, your mind is already deciding what's possible and what's not through the way it speaks internally. For most people, that voice becomes harsh, impatient, and fearful over time. It's the same voice that criticizes every mistake, magnifies every flaw, and convinces you that you're not ready. When that voice dominates your thoughts, fear grows and courage fades. To change this, you must learn the art of compassionate self-talk, not as a form of false positivity, but as a grounded practice that teaches your mind to respond to challenges with calm understanding instead of panic or judgment. Compassionate self-talk begins with awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. Listen closely to the tone of your inner dialogue. Most people underestimate how cruel their self-talk really is. They speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to a friend or even a stranger. You might find that you call yourself lazy for resting, weak for feeling afraid, or foolish for failing. But every harsh statement sends a message to your nervous system that you are unsafe with yourself. That constant attention weakens confidence and fuels anxiety. You can't build courage in an environment where your own thoughts feel hostile. Compassionate self-talk does not mean ignoring problems or denying responsibility. It means facing challenges with understanding and respect for your humanity. When you make a mistake, you don't need to attack yourself. You need to evaluate, learn, and move forward. The goal is to replace the internal language of punishment with the language of progress. Instead of saying, "I can't believe I failed again," say, "This didn't work, but I can improve it." That single shift changes your emotional state from hopelessness to curiosity. Curiosity opens space for learning. Self-hate shuts it down. Fear thrives in self-criticism. Every time you criticize yourself for being afraid, the fear doubles. The mind begins associating fear with weakness, so you hide from it instead of understanding it. But fear is not a flaw. It's a natural signal that you're moving beyond your comfort zone. When your self-talk becomes compassionate, you start viewing fear as information rather than an enemy. You can say, "I'm feeling afraid, but this fear means I'm growing." By acknowledging fear calmly, you reduce its control. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward while being kind to yourself in the process. Practice noticing when fear appears and respond with reassurance instead of judgment. When your thoughts say, "I can't handle this," reply with, "I've handled difficult things before." When you hear, "I'm not ready," answer with, "I'm learning as I go." These are not empty affirmations, they're reminders of truth. Fear often exaggerates danger and underestimates strength. Compassionate self-talk corrects that imbalance with logic and care. It grounds you in reality rather than panic. You might find it strange at first to speak to yourself this way. If you've spent years using criticism as motivation, compassion can feel unnatural. But harshness doesn't build discipline, it builds exhaustion. When you speak kindly, you don't become weaker, you become stable. Kindness restores emotional balance, and from balance comes strength. The mind performs best when it feels supported, not threatened. That's why the most effective self-talk is firm but caring. It holds you accountable without destroying your self-worth. Begin building this habit through intentional reflection. At the end of each day, take a few moments to recall how you spoke to yourself during stressful moments. Ask whether your words encouraged you or discouraged you. If you notice patterns of negativity, rewrite them in a more constructive tone. For example, change "I'll never get this right" to "I'm still figuring this out." Do this consistently until it becomes second nature. Over time, your default response to failure shifts from panic to patience. Another way to strengthen compassionate self-talk is through visualization. Imagine the version of yourself you're becoming: calm, confident, and courageous. Now, imagine how that version of you would speak in moments of doubt. They wouldn't yell or criticize, they would guide. They would say, "Take your time, you're doing fine, keep going." Adopt that tone until it feels natural. The mind learns through modeling. When you visualize compassion, you train your inner voice to follow that example. Emotional regulation begins with language. The way you label your experiences determines how you feel about them. Saying, "I'm overwhelmed," creates tension, while saying, "I have a lot to manage right now, but I can take one step at a time," creates focus. Both statements describe the same situation, but one increases anxiety and the other restores control. The words you choose are tools. Use them to create stability rather than chaos. Courage grows through repetition. Every time you speak to yourself kindly in a difficult moment, you build psychological resilience. You prove that you can face discomfort without collapsing. Over time, the distance between fear and action becomes smaller because your inner dialogue no longer magnifies danger. Instead, it provides steady guidance. That guidance turns courage into a habit rather than a rare burst of willpower. When developing compassionate self-talk, honesty is essential. Kindness without honesty becomes denial, and denial blocks growth. You can be gentle and truthful at the same time. You can say, "I didn't give my best today, but I can do better tomorrow." This kind of balanced self-talk keeps you grounded. It prevents extremes of self-blame and self-deception. Honesty gives your compassion credibility. Compassion gives your honesty humanity. Notice how your body reacts to different tones of self-talk. When you criticize yourself, your muscles tighten, your breathing shortens, and your mind races. When you speak kindly, your body relaxes. That relaxation is not just emotional, it's biological. The nervous system responds to gentle language by releasing tension. In that calm state, you can think clearly, make better decisions, and act with confidence. This is how compassionate self-talk directly increases courage, by creating the inner calm needed to act despite fear. If your inner dialogue has been harsh for years, be patient with the process of change. You're retraining a mental habit that developed over a long time. Begin with awareness, then intention, then repetition. Speak to yourself as you would to someone you care about deeply. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, compassion replaces criticism as your default voice. You stop being your own enemy and become your own ally. A helpful practice is to create a list of supportive phrases you can use when fear or self-doubt arises. Keep them simple and realistic. "I am capable of handling this. I can learn through this challenge. I am safe to try again." When panic begins to rise, repeat these phrases slowly until your breathing steadies. Words carry energy. Repetition of calm language retrains the mind to associate challenge with stability rather than threat. You can also use writing as a tool for compassionate dialogue. When your thoughts become overwhelming, write them down, then respond to them as if you were comforting a friend. Writing slows the mind and gives clarity. It allows you to observe your fears instead of drowning in them. Over time, your written responses begin to mirror your spoken thoughts, and compassion becomes your instinctive way of thinking. Courage is not about silencing fear, but building a relationship with it. Fear loses power when you meet it with understanding. When your self-talk becomes compassionate, fear stops feeling like a command to retreat and starts feeling like a signal to prepare. You begin to interpret uncertainty as an opportunity for strength rather than a threat to safety. That shift in interpretation is the moment courage awakens. The voice inside your mind will always be there. The choice you have is what kind of voice it becomes. You can let it echo the criticism of the past, or you can train it to speak with the wisdom of care. One voice will keep you small, the other will help you grow beyond your limits. The quality of your self-talk determines the quality of your confidence. With time, you'll notice that compassion doesn't just calm fear, it also sharpens focus, deepens patience, and strengthens your will. You'll handle uncertainty with steadier hands and setbacks with clearer vision. You'll stop freezing in doubt because your inner voice will remind you that it's safe to move forward. You'll begin to live with quiet bravery, the kind that comes from trust in your own support. When you speak to yourself with compassion, you build a safe place inside your own mind. In that space, courage naturally grows. You'll realize that fear no longer defines you because you've learned how to guide it instead of obeying it. Every calm word you offer yourself becomes a small act of healing, and over time, those acts add up to strength that no fear can shake. That is the power of compassionate self-talk. It transforms the noise of self-doubt into the language of confidence, one honest, gentle word at a time. Chapter 7. Commit to honest self-assessment, then plan measurable daily steps. Progress begins with honesty. You cannot improve what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot measure growth without clarity. Honest self-assessment is not about judging yourself. It's about understanding yourself. It's about standing still long enough to see where you truly are, instead of where you pretend to be. Too often, people chase improvement without first identifying their real needs. They jump into plans and resolutions built on vague hope rather than self-awareness. That's why most change doesn't last. Real growth requires truth, not the flattering kind, but the clear kind that shows both strength and weakness with equal accuracy. When you decide to assess yourself honestly, you choose courage over comfort. You stop hiding behind excuses and start observing your actions, habits, and results as they truly are. This process might feel uncomfortable at first because it strips away illusion. You begin to notice where you've been avoiding responsibility, where you've been inconsistent, and where your intentions haven't matched your actions. But discomfort is not failure, it's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward progress. Without it, every plan is guesswork. Begin your self-assessment with questions, not criticism. Ask yourself, what's working in my life right now? And what keeps holding me back? Write your answers without editing them. The goal isn't to sound positive, it's to sound truthful. Examine different areas of your life, your habits, relationships, mindset, and daily structure. Notice the patterns that repeat. If the same problem keeps reappearing, it's not coincidence, it's feedback. The world keeps presenting you with the same lesson until you learn it. Honesty means admitting both your effort and your avoidance. Maybe you've been disciplined in one area but careless in another. Maybe you've been saying yes when you needed to say no. Maybe you've been waiting for the right time that never comes. Self-assessment shines light on these patterns so that you can finally make deliberate changes. It's not about labeling yourself as good or bad. It's about becoming aware of your current state so that you can evolve. To make this process practical, document your findings. Write them out clearly. When you see your habits and behaviors on paper, they lose the power to hide. You start to see them as systems rather than as parts of your identity. You can then work on them objectively, like improving a process instead of blaming a person. The mind resists what feels personal, but accepts what feels analytical. That's why journaling is powerful. It gives you distance and perspective. Once you've been honest about where you are, the next step is to design a clear, measurable plan. Many people dream big but never define the steps between now and their goal. Without measurable actions, even the strongest motivation fades. A plan is not about perfection, it's about direction. It transforms vague desire into specific movement. You move from "I want to get better" to "I will complete this one task today." That small shift makes all the difference. Start by identifying one area that needs immediate attention. Choose something you can influence directly: your health, your focus, your discipline, your environment. Then set a realistic target. If your goal is to improve focus, plan measurable steps such as work without distractions for 30 minutes each morning, or limit phone use after dinner. These are clear and trackable. Progress can't be built on abstract hopes. It must be defined by observable actions. Break your larger goals into smaller steps that fit into your daily life. The mind stays motivated when it can see progress frequently. Small, measurable steps give you evidence of momentum. They also prevent overwhelm. Instead of thinking about how far you have to go, you focus on what you can do today. The compound effect of daily action is the foundation of long-term transformation. Measurement creates accountability. When you track your steps, you turn growth into data rather than emotion. Emotion fluctuates, but data doesn't lie. You might feel like you're not improving, but your records will show otherwise. That's why it's essential to track your habits not obsessively, but consistently. Use a notebook, a planner, or a simple digital list to mark your daily progress. The act of tracking reinforces commitment and helps you stay aware of your efforts. Be specific about how you measure success. Instead of saying, "I'll exercise more," say, "I'll walk for 20 minutes each morning." Instead of saying, "I'll be more mindful," say, "I'll meditate for 5 minutes at lunch." Each statement includes a clear action and a clear measurement. Vague goals breed inconsistency. Specific goals breed discipline. When you know exactly what to do, hesitation disappears. Self-assessment also requires emotional honesty. It's not just about your actions, but about your reasons. Ask yourself why you want to change. If your motivation is based on guilt or external approval, it won't last. But if your reason comes from genuine care for your well-being and growth, your effort becomes sustainable. Motivation fades, purpose endures. The stronger your reason, the stronger your follow-through. When planning daily steps, keep them realistic. A plan that's too demanding will collapse under its own weight. The best routine is one you can maintain even on difficult days. Consistency matters more than intensity. It's better to do something small every day than to do something extreme occasionally. The goal is steady movement, not perfection. Small improvements, repeated daily, lead to massive change over time. Evaluate your progress regularly. Set aside time each week to review what's working and what isn't. Honest review keeps your plan alive. If something isn't producing results, adjust it. Flexibility is part of discipline. Sticking to a failing method out of stubbornness is not strength, it's avoidance. True discipline means staying loyal to your goal, not to your method. Be willing to adapt as you learn more about yourself. During this process, avoid turning self-assessment into self-criticism. The purpose of review is not to attack your flaws, but to understand your patterns. When you find a weakness, respond with responsibility, not shame. You can say, "This area needs work, and I'm capable of improving it." That tone keeps you motivated and balanced. Shame shuts down growth. Responsibility accelerates it. It's also important to acknowledge your progress. When you notice improvement, no matter how small, pause and recognize it. That acknowledgement reinforces belief in your ability to change. Too many people focus only on what's left undone and ignore what's already achieved. But confidence grows from awareness of progress. You don't build motivation by reminding yourself how far you have to go. You build it by seeing how far you've come. Commitment to self-assessment also means honesty about time. Change takes longer than you expect. There will be days when progress feels invisible. Those are the days that test your dedication. When improvement seems slow, remind yourself that growth is happening beneath the surface. You're training your discipline, your patience, and your resilience, qualities that sustain success far longer than quick results ever could. The strength of measurable daily steps lies in their simplicity. They remove the need for endless decisions. Each morning, you already know what to do. That clarity frees mental energy and builds stability. When you live by clear priorities, distractions lose their power. You stop chasing instant gratification and start building something lasting. Accountability deepens commitment. Share your goals with someone you trust, or record your progress publicly if that motivates you. External accountability helps maintain consistency when internal motivation weakens. But remember, the ultimate accountability is to yourself. Every step you take is a promise kept. Keeping promises to yourself builds self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of self-love. As you continue this process, you'll begin to notice a new sense of control over your life. You'll move with greater confidence because you know where you stand and where you're going. You'll stop depending on emotion to decide your actions and start relying on structure. Life will still bring uncertainty, but you'll face it with clarity and strategy instead of confusion. Honest self-assessment and measurable daily steps create balance between awareness and action. Awareness keeps you truthful. Action keeps you progressing. Together, they form a loop of continuous growth, reflection, adjustment, and execution. This cycle builds not only results but also character. You become someone who faces life with maturity, responsibility, and discipline. Eventually, the process itself becomes part of who you are. You no longer have to force yourself to assess honestly or plan carefully. It becomes your natural rhythm. You start living consciously, guided by truth and structure instead of emotion and habit. That's the ultimate reward of this practice, not just achieving goals, but evolving into a person who lives with integrity and intention every single day. Chapter 8. Nurture supportive relationships that encourage growth, learning, and accountability. No one grows alone. Every person who evolves, learns, and changes is shaped by the people they choose to keep close. Relationships are powerful mirrors. They reflect our values, magnify our beliefs, and influence how we see ourselves. When your surroundings are filled with negativity, judgment, or indifference, your energy weakens and your progress slows. But when you surround yourself with people who challenge you with kindness, who believe in your potential, and who hold you accountable with respect, your growth accelerates. Supportive relationships are not about comfort. They are about elevation. They help you become more consistent, more self-aware, and more capable than you could ever be alone. The first step to nurturing supportive relationships is clarity. You must understand what kind of connections you need and what kind of energy you want around you. Growth-oriented relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and shared values. They don't drain your spirit or demand your silence. They encourage you to express your truth without fear of rejection. They celebrate your effort as much as your success. To attract these kinds of relationships, you must first become that kind of person yourself. If you want honesty, be honest. If and you want accountability, be reliable. Like attracts like. The energy you give sets the tone for what you receive. To create meaningful connections, focus on quality, not quantity. You don't need a crowd, you need depth. A few sincere, encouraging voices are far more powerful than a room full of noise. Many people surround themselves with company but still feel alone because the connections lack substance. A supportive relationship doesn't require constant contact, it requires genuine care. When people understand your values and respect your boundaries, even silence feels safe. Choose people who bring peace, not confusion. Supportive relationships are not always easy. They often require uncomfortable conversations, vulnerability, and honesty. But discomfort in communication is a sign of real connection. When you can discuss mistakes, doubts, and fears without judgment, that's when growth happens. You don't need people who only agree with you. You need people who help you, but see what you can't. The best relationships are not built on perfection but on accountability and truth, spoken with compassion. Accountability is one of the most powerful gifts a relationship can offer. True friends and mentors don't just comfort you when you fall, they remind you of your strength and encourage you to get back up. They don't criticize to hurt, they challenge to help. Accountability builds discipline through love, not control. When you have someone who asks, "Did you do what you said you would?" you are more likely to stay consistent. That small question reinforces integrity. It reminds you that your word matters. Building supportive relationships also requires the courage to release those that no longer align with your path. Some connections are based on old versions of yourself. As you grow, those relationships may no longer feel right. That doesn't mean they were bad. It means you've evolved. Holding on to connections that keep you small out of guilt or nostalgia drains your growth energy. You can be grateful for what people gave you and still step forward without them. Protecting your growth sometimes means walking away from what is familiar. Creating a circle of growth-oriented people doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to find those who truly align with your purpose. Be patient but intentional. Engage in environments where learning, respect, and accountability are valued, whether that's through communities, classes, or creative collaborations. When you show up authentically, you attract authenticity. People can sense when your energy is genuine and when it's not. The more honest you are about your goals and values, the easier it becomes to find those who share them. Supportive relationships also thrive on reciprocity. They are not one-sided sources of validation. They are mutual exchanges of energy. You give encouragement as much as you receive it. You listen as much as you speak. You hold others accountable with the same honesty you expect in return. Growth within relationships is a shared responsibility. When both people are committed to evolving, the connection becomes a safe ground for learning and inspiration. Learning is another essential part of supportive relationships. The people you spend time with shape how you think. When you're surrounded by those who love knowledge, challenge ideas, and live with curiosity, your own mind expands. You learn through conversation, observation, and shared experiences. A growth-oriented relationship stimulates your intellect as much as your emotions. It teaches you new perspectives, introduces you to new possibilities, and broadens your understanding of life. Emotional support within these relationships is steady, not dramatic. You don't have to perform to earn love or over-explain your pain to receive understanding. Supportive people listen with empathy and respond with care. They don't rescue you from responsibility, they remind you of your capacity to rise. This kind of emotional support builds strength rather than dependency. It makes you feel seen and capable at the same time. Trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Without trust, there can be no openness. You must know that your vulnerabilities will not be used against you. Building trust takes consistency, honesty, and reliability. Keep your promises, respect confidentiality, and admit when you're wrong. These small acts create an environment where both people can grow without fear of betrayal. When trust exists, even difficult conversations lead to deeper connection. To nurture these relationships, make time for them. Growth doesn't only happen in solitude, it also happens through shared experiences. Schedule conversations, check in on others, and express appreciation regularly. When you value someone, don't assume they know, tell them. Gratitude strengthens bonds. It reminds both of you that connection is a privilege, not an obligation. Boundaries are as important in supportive relationships as they are anywhere else. Healthy connections respect individuality. You can support each other without merging identities or controlling each other's choices. Encourage independence alongside closeness. Growth thrives when people have space to evolve freely. Boundaries protect respect. Without them, even good intentions can lead to exhaustion. Sometimes you will be the one offering strength, and other times you will be the one receiving it. Both roles are part of balance. Don't resist help out of pride. Accepting support is not weakness, it's humility. It allows others to contribute to your journey and deepens the connection between you. Likewise, don't give help to feel superior. Give because you genuinely care about seeing someone else succeed. That's how mutual respect grows. Conflict is inevitable in any relationship, even supportive ones. But in a healthy connection, conflict becomes a path to understanding instead of destruction. The key is communication. Speak calmly, listen fully, and seek resolution rather than victory. Disagreements handled with maturity strengthen trust. They teach patience, empathy, and emotional intelligence, all essential for personal and relational growth. As you nurture your circle, protect it from negativity. Don't allow gossip, envy, or competition to poison what you're building. Supportive relationships celebrate each other's success without jealousy. They focus on growth, not comparison. When one person wins, everyone learns. When one person struggles, everyone helps. This collective mindset turns a group of individuals into a true community. You will notice that being around supportive people changes your self-perception. Their belief in you becomes a mirror that helps you see your potential more clearly. Their encouragement gives you the strength to take risks you might have avoided alone. Over time, their influence becomes part of your internal dialogue, a voice that says, "You can do this, keep going. You're not alone." That internalization of support becomes one of the most powerful motivators in personal development. The beauty of supportive relationships is that they evolve with you. As you grow, the conversations deepen, the challenges become more meaningful, and the encouragement becomes more profound. These relationships become living reflections of your own evolution. They remind you that growth is not only about becoming better, but also about connecting deeper with others and with yourself. In the end, nurturing supportive relationships is not just about having people around you, it's about creating an ecosystem of mutual empowerment. You learn to give without losing yourself, and to receive without shame. You learn to speak truth without fear, and to listen without defense. You grow together, not in competition but in collaboration. That's what it means to surround yourself with people who build, not break, who teach, not tear down, who remind you every day that becoming your best self is not a solitary journey, but a shared one, built on trust, encouragement, and accountability. Chapter 9. Release past shame through forgiveness, rituals, reflection, and steady action. Shame is one of the heaviest burdens the human heart can carry. It lingers long after the mistakes are over, whispering lies about who you are and what you deserve. Unlike guilt, which points to something you've done, Shame convinces you that you are the problem. It keeps you trapped in the past, replaying moments you wish you could erase. It tells you that you're unworthy of peace, of love, of redemption. But the truth is, no one grows without error, and no one heals without forgiveness. The process of releasing shame begins not with forgetting the past, but with facing it calmly, honestly, and with compassion. Forgiveness is not about pretending that nothing happened. It's about acknowledging the truth without continuing to punish yourself for it. What's done cannot be undone, but how you carry it can be changed. You cannot step into a new version of yourself while dragging the weight of old regrets. Every day that you hold on to shame, you deny yourself the freedom to evolve. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's an act of strength. It's the decision to stop living as both the accused and the judge in your own life. The process starts with reflection. You must be willing to look directly at the events or choices that still haunt you. Avoiding them only gives them more power. Sit in a quiet space and write down what you feel ashamed of. Don't censor or justify anything. Honesty is what sets healing in motion. Once the thoughts are out of your head and onto paper, you can begin to separate what happened from who you are. You made a choice, but you are not that choice. You experienced failure, but you are not failure itself. This distinction is where self-forgiveness begins to take root. Shame often grows from unmet standards, the belief that you should have known better, done better, or been better. But growth requires experience, and experience often comes from mistakes. You were doing the best you could with the awareness you had at that time. The person you are today exists because of everything you've been through, including the moments you regret. To continue hating yourself for those moments is to reject your own evolution. Reflection should not end with blame. It should lead to understanding. Forgiveness rituals can help you turn that understanding into emotional release. You might write a letter to your past self, expressing everything you never said. Write about the pain, the regret, and the lessons learned. Then read it out loud, not as a punishment, but as closure. When you're finished, destroy the letter, tear it, burn it, bury it. The ritual symbolizes release. It tells your subconscious that the time for carrying this burden has ended. The act itself doesn't erase the past, but it allows the mind to let go of its grip. Another ritual is speaking forgiveness aloud. Words hold power, especially when directed inward. Say to yourself, "I forgive you for what you didn't know. I forgive you for the times you acted from fear. I forgive you for staying silent when you should have spoken." Speak until you feel a shift inside, a softening, a sense of quiet acceptance. That feeling is your heart beginning to open again. You cannot love yourself while holding on to resentment toward your own reflection. As forgiveness deepens, reflection transforms into wisdom. You begin to see that your mistakes were not signs of weakness, but invitations to awareness. Each one revealed something about your limits, your wounds, or your unmet needs. Use that insight to guide your actions now. When you live differently because of what you learned, you turn shame into strength. Growth is the proof of forgiveness. It's not about pretending the past was right, it's about ensuring it's not repeated. Steady action is what completes the process. Forgiveness without action becomes theory. To truly release shame, you must live in a way that reflects who you are becoming, not who you were. Start with small, intentional steps that honor your new awareness. If your past taught you the importance of honesty, make honesty a daily practice. If it revealed that you neglected your health, take steps to care for your body now. If it showed you that you hurt someone, take responsibility and make amends where possible. Each step taken with integrity rewires your identity. You begin to trust yourself again, and that trust is the deepest form of self-healing. Shame cannot survive in the presence of accountability. When you start living with conscious responsibility, The mind no longer needs to hold on to guilt as punishment. You stop saying, "I'm still paying for what I did," and start saying, "I've learned, I've changed, and I'm living differently now." That's what real freedom looks like, not escape from the past, but integration of it. You become whole again, because nothing is being hidden. Steady action also requires patience. Healing doesn't happen in a single moment of forgiveness. It happens through repetition. Some days, the memories will feel distant. Other days, they'll come back with intensity. When that happens, remind yourself that revisiting pain doesn't mean you're regressing. It means your mind is processing. Instead of fighting it, ground yourself in the present. Look around and remind yourself of who you are today. You are no longer that same person. You are someone who has grown enough to look back with wisdom instead of self-hate. Forgiveness also means accepting that you may never receive closure from others. Not everyone you hurt will understand your growth, and not everyone who hurt you will apologize. Waiting for others to free you keeps you tied to their control. You must decide to free yourself. You are not waiting for permission to heal. Your peace does not depend on anyone's approval and acknowledgement. It depends only on your willingness to let go. One of the hardest parts of releasing shame is allowing yourself to feel joy again. Shame convinces you that you don't deserve happiness, that you haven't earned peace. But the truth is, healing doesn't require permission. It requires choice. When you start engaging with life again, laughing, learning, creating, you're telling yourself that you deserve to live, not just survive. Joy becomes an act of defiance against shame. It's proof that you've reclaimed your right to exist fully. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it's remembering differently. It's looking at the same memory and seeing growth instead of punishment. When you can reflect on your past without emotional paralysis, you know you've healed. The memory becomes a teacher instead of a wound. And the more you practice this, the stronger your emotional resilience becomes. You begin to handle future mistakes with more grace because you understand that failure is not fatal. The relationship you have with your past shapes your relationship with the future. If you view yourself through the lens of shame, you move forward cautiously, afraid to repeat mistakes. But when you forgive yourself, you move with courage. You begin to see the future not as a place to hide from judgment, but as a place to express who you've become. Forgiveness turns regret into fuel, not to escape what was, but to honor what is now possible. Reflection remains an ongoing practice. Even after forgiveness, take time to pause and check in with yourself. Ask, what have I learned? How can I continue to live with integrity? This continual awareness prevents old guilt from creeping back in. You're no longer trying to escape the past. You're learning from it in real time. That's what it means to live consciously, to use reflection as guidance, not as self-punishment. The power of releasing shame lies in understanding that you don't need to be perfect to be free. You only need to be honest, forgiving, and willing to act differently. Forgiveness is not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of living unburdened. It's a quiet liberation, not loud or dramatic, but steady and profound. When you practice it daily, through reflection and deliberate action, you slowly dismantle the walls shame built around your heart. Eventually, you'll wake up one day and realize that the memories that once made you shrink now make you stand taller. Not because they disappeared, but because they lost their power. You'll feel lighter, clearer, and more grounded in who you are. You'll see that forgiveness didn't erase your past. It redefined it. The pain became wisdom, the guilt became awareness, and the shame became strength. That is the true reward of letting go, the ability to live as a whole person again, no longer trapped by yesterday, but guided by everything it taught you. Chapter 10. Strengthen. Purpose-driven goals that align values and habits. A meaningful life doesn't come from setting random goals. It comes from building goals that reflect your deepest values. Too many people chase achievements that look impressive on the outside, but feel empty on the inside. They confuse success with purpose and end up exhausted instead of fulfilled. Real progress begins when your goals match what truly matters to you. When your habits support those goals and your values guide your direction, everything you do starts to feel aligned. Life stops feeling like a struggle to keep up and becomes a steady rhythm of growth, clarity, and satisfaction. Purpose is not something you stumble upon by accident. It's something you define through self-awareness and deliberate reflection. To strengthen purpose-driven goals, you must begin by asking the right questions. What do I value most? What kind of person do I want to become? What impact do I want to make through my actions? The answers may not come immediately, but asking them shifts your attention from surface-level desires to deeper truths. When your goals grow from those truths, you stop chasing approval and start living intentionally. A purpose-driven goal has 3 defining qualities. It serves your growth, it benefits others in some way, and it aligns with your inner principles. It's not based on comparison or pressure, it's based on contribution. For example, if you value health, a goal like maintain consistent movement every day aligns with that value. If you value learning, read and apply something new weekly keeps that principle alive. The best goals are not about proving your worth. They're about expressing your values through action. The next step is connecting those goals to daily habits. Without consistent habits, even the most meaningful goals remain distant dreams. Habits are the bridge between intention and reality. They make purpose practical. To align habits with your purpose, first review how you currently spend your time. Do your routines support the life you want, or do they drain your focus? Every action you repeat either builds or blocks your purpose. By adjusting small habits, what you read, how you start your mornings, how you speak to yourself, you start shaping a life that reflects what you stand for. Clarity is essential. Write your goals down in clear, measurable language. A vague goal like be happier is hard to act on. A clear one like practice gratitude for 5 minutes every evening gives direction. The more precise your goals, the easier it becomes to align your behavior with them. Clarity eliminates confusion, and confusion is the biggest enemy of consistency. Values serve as the compass for decision-making. When you face a difficult choice, ask yourself which option aligns with your principles. This practice prevents impulsive decisions that lead to regret. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing right now?" and start asking, "What action reflects who I am and who I want to become?" That shift creates discipline without force. Purpose gives you motivation that doesn't depend on mood because it's grounded in meaning. Aligning your habits with purpose also means removing what contradicts it. If your goal is peace, you can't keep engaging in chaos. If your goal is growth, you can't stay in environments that discourage progress. Subtraction is as powerful as addition. Identify the habits, relationships, or distractions that consistently pull you away from your direction and reduce them deliberately. Every time you say no to what doesn't fit your values, you reinforce what does. Purpose-driven goals should evolve as you grow. What matters to you at one stage of life may change as you gain new experiences. Revisit your goals regularly and refine them. Ask, does this still align with who I am? Growth doesn't mean abandoning old values, but expanding them through deeper understanding. You remain consistent in principle but flexible in expression. Stagnation comes from holding on to outdated definitions of success. True progress means staying aligned with your present truth. Resilience grows naturally when your goals are rooted in purpose. When challenges arise, external motivation fades, but internal conviction keeps you steady. You're less likely to quit because your reason goes deeper than reward. You're no longer chasing temporary outcomes, you're fulfilling something meaningful. That's why purpose-driven people handle setbacks differently. They don't interpret them as failures. They see them as refinement, part of the process of becoming more capable and clear. To strengthen this alignment, take time each morning to reconnect with your intentions. Remind yourself why your goals matter. Visualize the kind of life you're creating and the values that drive it. When purpose becomes your daily focus, distractions lose their power. You stop reacting to every demand and start responding with awareness. This kind of clarity doesn't make life perfect, but it gives it structure and peace. Action brings purpose to life. Without consistent movement, even the most meaningful vision fades into wishful thinking. Create a simple action plan. Identify the next step, not the entire staircase. Purpose doesn't need grand gestures. It thrives in small, deliberate acts done consistently. Write the article, make the call, practice the skill, express the gratitude, whatever brings your values into motion. Every action anchored in purpose deepens your connection to it. Accountability reinforces purpose. Share your goals with someone who respects your vision. Discuss progress regularly, not for validation but for perspective. When someone reminds you of why you started, it helps you stay grounded during moments of doubt. Accountability doesn't mean pressure, it means partnership. It keeps your focus clear when life becomes noisy. Habits aligned with purpose also protect mental and emotional energy. When your actions serve what you value, you stop wasting energy on meaningless tasks. You feel more fulfilled because your effort produces significance, not just results. This alignment reduces burnout because your daily effort feels purposeful rather than obligatory. You start working from meaning instead of anxiety. Reflection at the end of the day deepens this cycle. Ask yourself whether your actions reflected your values. If they did, acknowledge the progress. If they didn't, adjust without guilt. The goal is not perfection, it's alignment. Even small corrections compound over time, creating massive change. Reflection transforms routine into wisdom by ensuring that every day contributes to your larger purpose. Purpose-driven living also requires humility. You must be willing to learn, to fail, and to adapt. Goals built on ego eventually collapse because they lack authenticity. But goals built on values endure because they are rooted in service to growth, to truth, and to the people your life touches. When your purpose includes contribution, it becomes a source of fulfillment that no external success can replace. Balance ambition with gratitude. Purpose is not only about striving for what's next, but appreciating what already is. Gratitude keeps purpose grounded in the present moment, reminding you that meaning exists in the process, not just in the outcome. When you're grateful, your motivation becomes lighter and your goals feel more natural. You stop chasing the future and start living the purpose that already exists within your actions today. Over time, you'll notice that purpose simplifies your life. Decisions become easier because your direction is clear. You no longer feel pulled in opposite directions because every effort connects to something that matters. That unity between values, habits, and goals creates inner stability, the kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You move with quiet confidence, knowing that even small actions are part of something meaningful. When purpose becomes your foundation, success transforms from a destination into a way of being. You stop measuring life by how much you achieve and start measuring it by how much alignment you maintain. Every habit becomes a reflection of integrity, every goal becomes an expression of love for what you believe in, and every challenge becomes a lesson in strength. That's what it means to live with direction, to wake up each day with clarity, act with intention, and end each night with peace, knowing that your life is not just full but fulfilled. And as you continue walking this path, you realize that purpose is not about reaching something far away. It's about living in harmony with what's already within you, your values, your truth, and your potential. When your goals and habits flow from that place, you stop searching for meaning, because you are living it. Every action becomes a statement of who you are, and every day becomes a quiet, steady affirmation that you are exactly where you're meant to be, moving forward with clarity, conviction, and purpose.